Ruby Amethyst has absolutely been tearing it up in PIXELBORN lately. We have a longest win streak now of 28, which is absolutely crazy. We take a look at the two versions that I use here. This one has an 81.8% win rate. This one has an 87.5% win rate. This second one here is the one where I change up the deck quite frequently to try out new tech cards. So I've tried things like Peter Pan Shadow, spell books, crabs, and like fidgets, and maybe some other stuff in varying capacities. And so far, all of them have had some decent success. But in this video, we're going to take a look at a couple of matches with this combination once again to find out what really works best and what maybe doesn't work best and or fit playstyles. Let me know in the comment section below if you find this kind of video interesting or if it's just kind of boring, meta relevant stuff that you've seen already. Regardless though, we're going to get into this video, and if you're not interested in this stuff, if you can at least leave a comment and let me know what you are interested in, that would be helpful. But yeah, let's go ahead and get into it. Well, you guys gave me the feedback in the Snow White video that you didn't mind the regular speed videos, and it does make my commentary a little more calm and less kind of rushed, but I will be able to explain the plays and my thought process and what reads I was trying to make against my opponent in these videos a little bit better. And given that these are more competitive matches, it might be better suited to have regular speed in these videos. So going up against Amber Steel, you may think that, okay, on the play, we have a tremendous advantage because we can play better for the tempo in order to get less or give less advantage to the opponent on a whole new world. And normally that is the case, but it really depends on how your hand curves out. So instantly when I see the Steel Song being inked, I'm like, okay, Amber Steel Song. I see the Queen, so I'm like, it's not the Warp 3000 version that runs the Gaston most likely. It's the Rockstar Stitch Queen Commanding Presence version, which is more manageable for sure against Ruby Amethyst. But the reason I can't quest here with the Minnie Mouse is because if the opponent does have a turn 2 shift Queen, it instantly runs into my Minnie Mouse for free, which instantly turns off my Madam Mim card. So I need to maintain that board presence so that I can Mim Fox next turn potentially. This Minnie Mouse represents not only one lore when it quests, but the bounce back will represent an ink resource, which is very valuable since a lot of the cards in Ruby Amethyst are extremely high value, and those 1-drops do come in handy for ink. When you play on curve with Ruby Amethyst, it's why it can get off to such a strong start, and we all know how powerful its endgame is. So for turn 3, I'm going to go ahead and ink that Olaf, quest with the Minnie Mouse now, and drop a Mim Fox to bounce back the Minnie and crash into the Queen. And now I'm looking like I'm in a really great position, because this Jafar will get outed by the Fox if they choose to quest with it, and this Mim Fox essentially went 2 for 1 while giving me back one of my inkable resources. The opponent though has other plans, and on 3 ink they're going to hard cast a Let the Storm Rage on, which while it replaces itself, so my Mim Fox technically does not go 2 for 1, it does slow down the opponent establishing a board presence, so potentially dropping, let's say, a dock or whatever else that they might be on, because at this point they're not on Steel Song clearly. And I guess you can call the Mim Fox 1.5 for 1 in that instance. On turn 4, I'm going to opt to try to value card advantage and play a Maleficent here, even though I've seen them ink some of those Jafars, and so I'm pretty confident that if I play my Minnie Mouse, it can survive. Against Steel, they might run Smash. We've already seen Strength of the Raging Fire and Let the Storm Rage on. So they're playing a lot of pinging damage removal spells, and so the Minnie Mouse isn't really super high value in this matchup necessarily. But there is the 3rd ink Jafar, and then they drop a Hercules Bodyguard, and I'm like, what the heck am I playing against? And then I realized later, after the fact, that there is a popular deck going around that basically utilizes Tiana and bodyguards to prevent your opponent from playing like Be Prepared and Friends on the Other Side, Teeth and Ambitions, etc. So it's kind of like a engineered counter to Ruby Amethyst. The issue is though, like Madam Mim Fox, as you see there, trades into your bodyguards. Maui instantly trades into your Tiana. And if you lose your Tiana and I can cast my Be Prepared, you have nothing in your hand since you were trying to use the Tiana effect, and therefore you just instantly lose the game. So this deck is really like an all or nothing deck, but it does put on a decent amount of questing pressure. Like, it looks like my opponent has the advantage here. I do have more cards in hand, but they do have the board presence, and that dock is questing for 2. However, on 5 ink, being on 6 this turn, I am going to be able to set up for the potential Be Prepared on turn 7, which I do have, and my opponent is nowhere near dumping out their hand because they'd have to essentially play a Tiana next turn, and then play out the rest of their hand, ink 1, and then play out the last 2 cards. So the odds that they have that exact hand where they can be on 6 ink, play a Tiana, and play 2 1-drops to empty their hand out is pretty minimal. And then it doesn't even matter, right? Because the Tiana has to quest regardless. So here I'm going to opt to keep my Yzma for card draw, and I ink my Minnie Mouse Surfer because I'm not valuing the aggro in this matchup. I'm valuing the board control. And so on 6 ink here, I make a super telegraph play by not overextending with characters that I have a Be Prepared ready to drop. And this is kind of like a conditioning of my opponent. Yes, you put a dock on board, which has its lantern effect when it quests, but do you really want to play something so that I can Be Prepared it? If you're on a Mufasa, maybe, but even so, like, it just slows you down. And Mufasa, as we know, is a gamble. We see this opponent on some songs and actions in their deck, and therefore the Mufasa also has a chance of missing if they do even play it. So if they don't end up overextending here, I do this so that I don't have to waste the Be Prepared. And this is why Ruby Amethyst is such a control deck, because I condition my opponent, I slow down their tempo on multiple occasions, and I'm just forcing out awkward plays from them because they have to play around the Maleficent, Maleficent Dragon for sure, but they have to play around the Be Prepared, they have to play around the rush characters in Mim Fox and Maui, and you can see the end result here. So now they're going to go ahead and ink on 6 ink and drop the Beast Tragic Hero. And oh boy, do I ever make a huge misplay. They opt to quest with their Jafar, and I'm like, easy money. Maleficent crash into Jafar, drop Lady Tremaine, use Spellbook, ink something, pass. I accidentally clicked pass turn, and my opponent ends up drawing 2 with Beast. So not only did I not ink, not play anything, I just pass on nothing. I leave the Beast Tragic Hero on field, which gets them a draw 2, and now they drop a Mufasa. And again, not something that would happen in real life, but of course, the misclick on my 29th win streak messes me up. However, so powerful is Ruby Amethyst in somebody who knows slightly what they're doing. I'm by no means a top tier player, but you can claw your way back from this, believe it or not. So it looks like a really bad situation, and now I have to really think, what do I do here? I really do value this Cusco, but it's more useful to me right now as ink. I'm going to go ahead and quest with the Fox and then drop the Inevitable. Be Prepared, and I make sure I play the one that's on the right side of my hand so it makes the opponent think like I just top decked it and I didn't have one before that I was holding the whole time. The Mufasa thankfully doesn't reveal anything too threatening. They get a Cinderella Ballroom on field. I go ahead and quest with the Spellbook and pass turn. Now the opponent does have advantage, right? They have 5 cards in hand, but they only have 6 ink. They're going to go ahead and drop a dock and quest with the Cinderella to go to 10. And are they going to play something else, or are they just going to pass on this dock? If they pass on dock, next turn we have Maleficent Dragon to out it, and they are still fearing that Be Prepared, it looks like, not trying to overextend. So once again, conditioning and forcing the opponent into awkward plays, and we just have other forms of removal to basically dominate the game with. And at this point in the match, there's almost nothing the opponent can do. We have Be Prepared and double Lady Tremaine, and we're almost on 10 ink, which means we can drop Lady Tremaine, shift Lady Tremaine in the same turn on 10 ink to out 2 characters at once. The Mim cards will bounce back those double Lady Tremaines, which means I can keep recasting them, and it's just total domination from here. They end up dropping double Bodyguards, non-exerted, and passing turn on nothing. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, this is totally fine. I'm going to catch up to you now. Is it worth inking the Mim Fox and double playing the Lady Tremaines? No, it's not. I'd rather just continue to dominate the control game and put my opponent on good luck outing my board, I guess, because I'm going to keep it small, but you can see me already questing up to 9. I'm constantly putting you under the threat of Be Prepared, and at some point you're just going to have to commit because you're questing for 3, and I will once again cycle my removal and deal with your threats while continuing to quest, because I know you don't have board wipes. The grab your swords, if you do play it, won't be enough. And so they're going to go ahead and quest with the Hercules. If they quest with Simba, they know they'll lose it for free against the Fox. And then I still have my Fox to take out the Hercules next turn if I wanted to. So are they going to quest with Simba too? Probably not. They quest with Cinderella. So they say if you want to crash, you have to crash your Mim Fox into the Hercules, which will trade out. And then they will still survive with a Ballroom and a Simba Bodyguard on field. Now they're thinking really hard about, should I play something? Do they have another Be Prepared? What's going on? And you can see them thinking for a very long time here. And if they play something, you best believe I will be prepared. And we have Lady Tremaine ×2 and Maleficent Dragon for follow-up. The opponent is down to 3 cards, so you already know we are in absolute commanding position here. And we have Spellbook to continue to quest for lore whenever we Be Prepared. So because they dropped the Beast Tragic Hero, we quest with the Fox. We drop the Be Prepared, we quest with Spellbook. And I have triple Lady Tremaine and a Maleficent Dragon. There's no way I'm losing this match. The opponent didn't even know that, but they know I have a Maleficent Dragon, and they just end up scooping it up. And now for the mirror match, and going second always feels bad, but we do have the 1-drop, so we should be a-okay. We also have a 2-drop and multiple 3-drops depending on how the situation curves out, so we're just going to go ahead and put back the Maleficent and the Lady Tremaine and keep the rest of the hand. We're not looking too bad. The only downside in the mirror match though is if you don't have a way to out the opposing Minnie Mouse Surfer, you are going to be in trouble. So my opponent starts off with a great turn 1 in the Minnie Mouse. We're going to ink one of our 2 Cuscos and do the exact same thing in dropping a 1-drop Minnie. Now we don't have a snake, so we're once again stuck in the same situation where we might not be able to quest with this Minnie Mouse because we are at risk of it getting taken out for free, and we need to keep this Minnie Mouse on the field in order for our Mim Fox to stay online. So we're going to go ahead and ink the goat and drop the Cusco instead, and we're not going to quest, we're just going to pass. This is the advantage of Ruby Amethyst going first, is that they just have the tempo and they're easily going to get ahead in the lore, and in the end game that's sometimes all that's needed in order to win the game. So this opponent rightfully puts a Minnie Mouse stylish Surfer on board, and we do not have a way to deal with that unless we draw into our own stylish Surfer, which we can then beef up with our crab in order to take it out. I make a bit of an odd play here. I opt to ink a fox, which I don't know if necessarily that is correct, and I think I'm in my head preserving the crab for drawing into a Minnie Mouse hopefully, where I could have also just played the crab and ran the Cusco into the Mim Snake on the opposing side in order to draw a card, but this play allows me to get my Minnie Mouse back for ink next turn, but it does cost me my fox because I inked one and I played out the other one trading into the Mim Snake. Despite that though, the opponent is only on 3 cards. However, they do have a very powerful turn 4 Merlin, which is able to draw them a card, and they are going to continue to quest with that Mini Surfer. Unfortunately, we draw into our second crab and we only do play 2. We're going to start with a Maleficent to hopefully keep drawing. We just need to see some way to out these stylish surfers, but we don't see it. So we're going to quest, go to 3, and right now the opponent is valuing an aggro strategy. They draw and they go to 5 in hand. They're going to ink an Olaf and decide obviously to quest with the Minnie Mouse, but also quest with the Merlin Rabbit, not even bothering taking out my Cusco, and adding insult to injury, they also play a second Minnie Mouse Surfer, and we're looking like we are in trouble. So the draw here in my thinking is I just need to play this, see what I draw off of it. We draw an Olaf, which isn't great. We do have 2 Teeth and Ambitions though, which we can sing with the Maleficent and Cusco on board in order to out one of those mini surfers, so we can mitigate some of the damage or questing power that the opponent has. The Cusco does eventually get banished and we draw a card. So in hindsight, maybe not beefing up that Cusco and crashing it into the Mim Snake was a decent play after all, because I was able to follow up with the Sung Teeth on it in order to draw a card later. And as we can see from these draws, they did not change the outcome of the game. We still would have drawn into no way to deal with the Minnie Mouse. This play here though does limit the opponent to go to 10 really, unless they want to play a goat and or something else that gains on lore like a spellbook. But we are easily falling way behind in this match here with no real way to deal with the opposing surfer just yet. On 6 ink, the opponent is going to drop a Yzma and bounce back their rabbit to draw 3 cards, and they instantly now go from 2 to 5 in hand once again, and they have 4 questing pressure on board, including that problematic Minnie Mouse, which, as we've seen, we cannot out. So I'm just going to continue to quest because, again, the opponent is not going to challenge anything. They also want to just keep questing. I ink one of the 2 crabs, and I'm going to go ahead and drop a Tremaine to start forcing outs here, keeping the opponent on only questing for 2 instead of questing for 4. They think for a while, but I'm pretty sure they're just going to go with the Yzma here. I mean, the Minnie Mouse has served you well up to this far. Maybe its time is running out and you want to out it, and the Yzma might have value because if you have a bounce back to hand, you might be able to constantly recast it or recast it one more time to keep drawing cards. And in the mirror match, the card draw is, or should be what wins you the match, but sometimes the Minnie Mouse Surfer is all it takes if you don't see the right cards to out it. Regardless though, yeah, we're not in a great spot. 5 to 10. While we do have board presence, the opponent is the first to 7, and they likely aren't even going to be prepared because they see how much value this mini is getting. Clearly, I can't out it. So they just opt to drop a goat and then just keep cycling more lore by bouncing back the goat with the fox. And again, they're just valuing a super aggro strategy here. The Mim Fox here, outs the Maleficent, and while Maleficent does replace itself, it's still a body that gets outed by the fox, and so we have to crash into the rabbit. This is like the plays I'm forced to make, forcing 2-for-1s on myself in order to survive, because I'm going to be able to shift for the Tremaine in order to out the opponent's Tremaine here. And I didn't actually think about this at the time, but since this was the only thing I was going to play, I definitely should have not shifted it since I wasn't planning to overextend. So that is a huge misplay on my end in not just playing it outright, since I didn't end up playing anything else for turn. That's why you don't always want to play too fast. Sit down and think about your plays. The reason I don't want to play anything else is because I don't want to play into a Be Prepared, but if I don't do that, I'm easily playing myself into a Maui or a Lady Tremaine on the other side. And sure enough, there is the Maui. They're not at Maleficent Dragon just yet, but that's another threat I have to be aware of. They drop a Min Fox and bounce back their Maui, so their 2 cards in hand that I don't know are likely big removal. We're going to go ahead and drop the Ursula, though, which is a decent top deck here, and ink the Goat, and then pass turn. The problem remains if they have a Lady Tremaine or a Maleficent, both of those will easily deal with the Ursula when it's sitting there unprotected on board. And then, of course, we know that Be Prepared will also do work against us. So the Lady Tremaine comes down, and I'm like, my hand isn't the greatest. I have no way to deal with an opponent's board here. So they're going to quest to 14 with Fox, and then next turn they're going to be able to quest to 17. We draw a Yzma here, which isn't helpful. So we're going to go ahead and drop a Maleficent, and I guess this is why Yzma can sometimes be cut from the deck. I mean, obviously my opponent used it to great effect, but it is more of a tempo-oriented card, but it does help you dig, and in this instance, you can see it dug me finally into that Be Prepared, and I'm just going to go ahead and end up passing. I know the 17 lore is inevitable, but is the opponent going to be able to close it out from there? They have 9 ink. Are they going to overextend? I don't think this is considered an overextending, because Maleficent replaces itself, but they do draw into a Maleficent off the Maleficent and are able to cast both and then just quest and pass turn. Now, in this instance, there could be a case made to hard cast my friends on the other side there and just quest with the Yzma, but in the end, I end up Be Preparing, and I guess it's fine because if I did hard cast it, I wouldn't be able to play this Minnie Mouse. So at least I'm able to put something on board and pass turn, and the opponent could be on a multiple Be Prepares and just not have anything, right? But the score is 17-7, so it's not going to take much for them to close out this game. They do indeed drop 1 Be Prepared. Wow. On a 1-drop Minnie Mouse. We drop Snake here, and I'm like, if they opted to Be Prepared a Minnie Mouse, undoubtedly they're going to have another one. And so I can't drop my, well, I mean, there's nothing else for me to really do here, but I do opt to just cycle Goat for 3 lore and pass turn, trying to bait out the Be Prepared, because I do have Maleficent Dragon for whatever character that they drop that's a threat. But I do need them to play a character in order to get value off of this Maleficent Dragon. The issue is the opponent likely has Lady Tremaine and or Maleficent Dragon of their own in their hand, which means whatever removal I have, they will have removal for it as well. The top deck Ursula here isn't the worst, but again, because I know my opponent is likely on removal, I'm actually going to opt to save my Ursula and drop a Fox instead. If I would have quested with the Yzma instead of singing Friends with it, I would have been at 13 lore. If I would have kept the Ursula online or on the board, it wouldn't have mattered because the Elsa comes down to tap down my my Mim Fox. So I'm gonna go ahead and drop the Maleficent Dragon here and out the opponent's Elsa. And I could ink the Maui and then drop the Snake in order to bounce back the Maleficent. And again, this is kind of a hit or miss. Do you value the board presence and questing power, or do you value the removal? In this instance, I opted to value the removal, and the cycling of the Ursula was done so that I can keep draining them on the lore. Unfortunately, they do drop a Maui, and that takes out my Mim Fox, and then they're going to go ahead and drop an Olaf for extra protection. Quest with Minnie, go to 17 and pass. Now, I do have to be aware of Goat, but the opponent is only on 1 card, and I'm like, okay, do they have the removal? Yes or no? A Be Prepared here isn't the worst because Maleficent Dragon follow-up is strong, and again, they know I have Maleficent Dragon and Ursula, so will they play into it? I don't know. Or do we drop Maleficent here because it's the known card in hand, out the Olaf, crash the Snake into the mini, and then now the opponent's Maui will be forced to crash into the snake, which will trade out here. So is this more high value? It depends on what's in the opponent's hand. So we forced the board wipe from the opponent. What were they holding? Unfortunately, it was a Lady Tremaine, which does instantly out our Maleficent Dragon. Now on 17 lore, if this Lady Tremaine goes unanswered, they go to 19, which means a top deck goat would win them the game. We draw an underwhelming Olaf, and I opt to be prepared here. Technically, Ursula would be the correct play to put them back on 16 lore, and then be prepared whatever they play in addition to the Lady Tremaine. But they go back up to 18 when they quest with Lady Tremaine, and in hindsight, as you can see here, they ended up top decking a goat. So they would have played the goat, gone to 19, and then as soon as the goat left the field, they go to, or quests, which is next turn, they go to 20 and win the game. So in hindsight, despite this being technically a misplay, because I think that's their third goat, and the odds that we're going to get that is pretty slim, it ends up working out in our favor. But the issue is I don't have any way to stop whatever next character they play. And if they play anything that quests for more than 2, or 2 or more, I lose, because the Ursula is only going to take away 1, and I won't be able to stave off them questing for game. Unfortunately, the Maui is not enough, so we drop the Ursula, draw a card, and then we're going to go ahead and drop Rabbit and draw another card, but it's inevitable. There's nothing we can really do, I don't think. I think there may have been like one out that I may have been able to do, but it's too hard to remember here. Basically, we lost this game, and this breaks our win streak back down, or I guess not down, but our win streak is 29. That's going to go ahead and wrap it up for this video, though, guys. If you enjoyed, let me know in the comment section below. Thank you again for watching. If you made it this far, Quantum is out.